Elvis may have left the building, but he's about to re-enter and stay there permanently right next to his best buddy, Adrian Beltre. What a show we have for you. This one should be fun. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. Even as the Rangers are named by several publications as one of the favorites in the American League, this year they look back today and they honor Elvis Andrus and Adrian Beltre, or at least they announced the fact that they're going to honor those two men, those two guys that did so much for this franchise in a long career for each here. Hi there. Welcome into the DLLS Sports Studios. Welcome to the DLLS Rangers podcast. It's me, John Radigan, with Jeff Wilson. The Prophet's here, almost in full voice, full throat. He's feeling much better, looking better. It's great to have him back and healthy, and it's great to have you because this is a fun day. We'll get to those predictions, many of which have the Rangers as possibly the second-best team in the American League, and we'll also talk about the catching situation. But we'd like you to chat along with us as we talk about two of our favorites, no doubt about that, Elvis Andrus and Adrian Beltre, both of whom are in the news today. Elvis will be honored, and I swear, Jeff, from our lips to the Hall of Fame committee of one, the Hall of Fame committee's ears, just yesterday, we said, is anybody going into the Hall of Fame this year? We didn't think so. Today we find out there is. It's Elvis Andrus.
Yeah, and you think about the first World Series teams and all the great players who are on it. I mean, he's I think becomes the fifth member of the Hall of Fame, the Rangers Hall of Fame, from those teams: Michael Young, Kinsler, Hamilton, and Beltre. So now Andrus, and you can't separate him from those teams and from that great era of Rangers baseball. And he in 2017 had his best year, was Rangers Player of the Year. After Adrian retired, the duties of the face of the franchise fell to Elvis, and I'm not sure he was comfortable in that role necessarily, but he always smiled, always had a good time, always was great with the media. And look, he's their all-time stolen base leader. He was a two-time All-Star. So Elvis belongs in the Rangers Hall of Fame. If you think about great Rangers players who meant so much to the club, Elvis is the guy. Elvis is a guy who belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And Jumpy Jenny just said it was Elvis and Adrian that made her a Rangers fan. And the reality is the joy with which the two of them played the game made so many people fans, right? And so Jeff mentioned those 10 and 11 teams. And, of course, Adrian wasn't even on that 10 team, but he did get there for the 11 season. But the 15 and 16 teams,
sure,
those were Adrian and Elvis.
Yeah, the 16 team, people forget, had the best record in the American League.
Yeah.
They were the one seed. They bowed out very quickly in the postseason. The 15 team felt a feel-good team. Raced back from a large deficit and caught and passed the Astros.
Unlike the last day of the season, right?
Cole Hamels was kind of the main guy behind that. Beltre was hurt that year. Chu had an unbelievable September. And then Elvis, Game 5 against the Blue Jays, commits 2 errors. Just a crushing moment for him. And he stood up afterward in Rogers Center and faced the media. He didn't shy away from it. He was a good teammate. And so I think that, those those teams that era until the 23 team came along were the best times in franchise history. And he was Mr. Good Times, aggressive on the bases, brought up by Ron Washington, just all these things that make him a candidate for the Hall of Fame. And it really, I think the Rangers were just waiting for him to retire.
Yeah, they were. And he came back and retired a Ranger. And so now he will be honored in the Hall of Fame. It's on June 22nd, and that'll be the day to mark on your calendar. You'll want to get some tickets to that game if you can, as Elvis goes in. I think it was the note that John Blake sent out. He's the 27th?
27th member,
27th Hall of Famer. Typically what the Rangers try to do is put a player or somebody from the field of play in one year and somebody who was not on the field of play in the next year. But in any event, this is a year for a player, and really none better, as Jeff mentioned, than Elvis Andrus to be deserving of this honor, because whether he liked it or not, whether he liked that sort of face of the franchise deal, he became it because he was always so agreeable to do interviews with the media and always had that smile and that fun that he demonstrated even without Adrian, but certainly that reached its zenith when he and Adrian were a part of that wonderful hijinks that became legendary in this organization.
Yeah, and last year when Adrian was inducted to the Hall of Fame, he took time out during his speech to single out Elvis and called him a pain in his butt and all of that stuff. But to Jenny's comment, they made people fans. Their joy, and baseball's a game. Let's be honest. And you want to have fun, doing your job. I mean, John, we like having our job. We have a good time, And then, I always tell people, they're like, "Oh, sports writer, what a great job." And I'm like, well, there are assholes at every job. But for the most part, this is a great job. And what those two did, they just had fun. And when you're having fun, you're better.
You are, and it's infectious. And, in a way, I think that whole conversation we had yesterday about the psychological aspect of this game and how it can be just so overwhelming to guys psychologically. Elvis and Adrian were a couple of examples of guys that did not get bogged down by that, at least not when Adrian was here. I would submit to you, and I think he's even talked about this, he let the weight of every bit too much in Seattle, right?
He did.
And he realized, that's not who I am. I can't play that way. I got to play like I played when I was a teenager with the Dodgers, or when I was even younger than that in the Dominican.
Yeah, it really came to the forefront again last year, leading up to the Hall of Fame, from the moment he was voted for induction to the actual enshrinement, the actual induction. He talked about how the Rangers allowed him to be who he needed to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was Elvis, because Elvis farted around with him, brought it out, and at the time, it was a huge contract, 6 and 96. I believe at the time it was the largest contract the Rangers had ever given out, and but he didn't feel the weight of it. I mean, look, when he signed right after New Year's of 2011, they're coming off the 2010 season when they went to the World Series for the first time. Josh Hamilton was the MVP.
Yeah,
Michael Young was the all-time hits leader. Kinsler was an all-star, and this team was just at a moment right there where they didn't need the guy with the biggest contract to be the savior. They had a lot of star power, and so I think that took kind of a load off of them. But then, the way that Ron Washington managed, and even to an extent, John Daniels, putting the team around Adrian and allowing him to play without pressure, it really set off what really was the best stretch of his career. I mean, when T.R. Sullivan wrote this for the Rangers Today, my old website. Adrian Beltre, when he came to the Rangers, was not a Hall of Fame player. He became a Hall of Famer with the Rangers, with the 30 homer seasons and hitting for the cycle and all that stuff. And it was because, in part, he felt at ease, which directly goes to Elvis, and he gave credit to Elvis many times during that week in Cooperstown.
Yeah, and it definitely goes to John Daniels and to Ron Washington, who he also credited, because they told him, it wasn't just sort of do by example or, kind of watch the atmosphere around this team. It was basically, we're telling you, play like you want to play like you, be you, right? And once they did, he did. And actually, Elvis was still such a young player,
right?
That he was probably looking at Adrian going, we get to have this much fun,
yeah.
Because a lot of guys take it so seriously, and Adrian did not let Elvis do that, and they both thrived, they both flourished, as did the team during that time when they were together. The statue of Pudge is on one side of the building. The statue of Nolan Ryan is on the other side of the building. The statue of Adrian Beltre is going to go at the northeast entrance and exit, I guess, of Globe Life Field. And the question becomes, and we'd love you to weigh in on the chat, is there any doubt what the pose should be, Jeff?
Right.
Now, some people might say the pose should be him moving the on-deck circle, right? Some people might say it should be throwing the glove at Elvis. Some might say it should be a hand touching his head. No, it's Elvis. I mean, it's Adrian on one knee.
Yeah, and Tyler mentioned that in the chat. And, I even think that Adrian kind of has his own logo, and that's his logo. So I would assume that if he had a say in this statue. First of all, I'm willing to bet that Adrian does not like the idea of having a statue.
No.
He's very humble and
Yeah.
doesn't seek out the attention. But he's getting one. And it has to be one knee. And if he had a say with the artist who's doing this, then I'm assuming that's what it is. And you're right. He completely deserves to have a little input, I'd say, on what he looks like for posterity's sake. And it'll be fun. It's going to be on a Friday night, August the 22nd. The Elvis induction is a Saturday night, June the 28th. That's my anniversary, so I may not be there. But anyway, I'm looking forward to both. And any way to keep these two guys involved. Elvis, as we found out last week, is going to be on the television broadcast pre and post game, a limited amount. So we're going to see a lot of them in retirement. He still lives in the area, whereas Adrian lives in Southern California. But it's still nice to see him. And I don't know if the Rangers want him as a special assistant, but I'm sure that that's kind of where these guys go off to pasture. Michael Young and Darren Oliver and Ian Kinsler and Colby Lewis from those teams are assistants to the GM, to the front office, I guess. But nevertheless, I think any time you can keep your most valued alumnus in the fold and in the public eye, it's good for the franchise. So all these things are nothing but positive.
They are, and I was just reading, and I can't remember who I was just reading about. Might have been Jim Edmonds, just trashing the Cardinals organization for forgetting all of those guys, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen with other organizations, and it's unconscionable to me. Like anybody who was anybody, Jim Edmonds, maybe, in the Cardinals organization, maybe as foremost among them as almost anyone. How do you not embrace that memory, that history, that legacy, right? And so, yes, the Rangers are doing a really good job, and actually always have. I mean, all of the, friends of mine, as they've become since we worked together on TV so long, always feel welcome. They always feel, very well cared for and appreciated as alums of this organization.
Yeah, and to your point, the Cardinals have such a rich baseball history, and they would bring back their Hall of Famers, and you'd see them in the red jackets lining up on opening day. Lou Brock and Bob Gibson, and Stan the Man, and Red Shandies, all these great players they've had, but maybe it's just hard to crack their Hall of Fame or whatever it is, but every baseball decade there's been a great Cardinals team,
yes,
or at least one, and to not recognize that, to your point, to Jim Edmonds' point, is kind of shameful. But the Tigers, we were in Detroit one weekend, John, when they honored the 2016 was the 10-year anniversary. So
sure.
Pudge came back in that team.
Yeah.
And they didn't win the World Series, but they were a great team,
yeah.
right? And the Rangers recognized the 10 and 11 teams, obviously, and counting down the last days of Globe Life Park, would welcome back alumni to do the countdown or whatever it was. So there were a lot of things, and then the 50-year anniversary when Jeff Burrows came back, and all kinds of guys, and we talked about it yesterday when Juan Gonzalez came back. Just reuniting and bringing back the fans' favorite players too. So anyway, good stuff. Good for the Rangers, and I think tickets are available now.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. I think they are, and we're
season
looking
tickets certainly
soon
are.
if they're not. Yeah.
Season tickets certainly are.
And we're looking forward to those 2 dates, June 28th and August 22nd. All right, coming up next, let's talk about the catching situation. It was the first target, if you will, in this offseason. I don't know if it was the most important, but it was the first need that was addressed by the Rangers front office. And so we talk about that and handicap the catching situation for the Rangers this year next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. But first, I think you all know what time it is.
Game time.
Yeah, it's game time. Game time. So Nicole texted me this morning, or emailed me, I guess. Yeah, and just reminded me, and it may have something to do with what I've purchased before, but she reminded me that Of Juliet is available. Now, that's a musical. That's a play that's over at Fair Park in Dallas in February. And when my wife and I got our tickets through Game Time, it was to go see Dear Evan Hansen at the Meyerson. I noticed, too, when I just jumped on the site real quick, Toby Mac, if you're a fan of the message-type music and religious, he's like a hip religious music guy, Toby Mac. And he's from the area. You can get tickets to Toby Mac out there at that whatever that arena is called in Grand Prairie now by the horse race track. You get tickets as cheap as $29 for Toby Mac. So anyway, and of course, Stars, Rangers, Fort Worth Stock Show, and Rodeo. DLLS is the code to use at GameTime.com and get $20 off your first purchase.
For that Mavs game, the Boo Fest, still $38 in the rafters can get you in. So anyway, Game Time.
There you go.
John, it is not sunglasses weather.
No,
right
very
now.
gray today.
It was foggy.
Yeah.
We're going to go
downright fog. Yeah.
But I saw something that TCU tweeted out. There's like 200 and a big number, more than 200 days every year in Texas when it is sunny. And so you need your Shady Rays. And if you haven't heard about Shady Rays, they're great, durable, inexpensive but not cheap sunglasses. You get 35% off polarized sunglasses when you use the code DLLS at shadyrays.com. John's a big fan.
Huge.
He's getting his repaired or possibly just flat out replaced because the little rubber thing fell off. But this is a great item, and they've been with us since day one. So shadyrays.com.
Yep, we love them, and we really love, we think we're really going to love this catching situation that the Rangers have pieced together with their first move, and a very intentional, and as we learned from the player himself, a very targeted move, Jeff, when the Rangers went out and got Kyle Higashioka. Now, of course, most remember him as a Yankees catcher, but he ended, he got traded over to the Padres, and he actually had some of his best offensive time was with the Padres due to a fairly minor but ultimately proved major swing adjustment, Jeff.
Yeah, and he talked about it on our show when we had him on the day that the signing was announced, and he basically just said that his stance had closed. They'd closed his stance a little bit, so the balls he was hitting foul were staying fair. They were carrying over the fence a little bit more. So he's finding the barrel a little bit more regularly. He also, it somehow helped him improve his strike zone judgment. He was seeing the ball better. So all those things contributed to him hitting 17 home runs in only 84 games.
Yeah.
That's a pretty prolific home run rate. And then, the average was still, not great at 220. But if you look at what the Rangers did last year, the production they got from their catchers. Now, these are games as catchers, not a possible DH day or whatever.
Yeah.
And They were. I wrote it in today's story. They were 26th in the league in OPS and slugging percentage. That's not good, or not the league in baseball. There are only 30 teams, John.
Yeah.
So that's not very good. They didn't hit a ton of home runs. I think it was only 16 from their catchers. So you kind of look at the elite teams last year in catcher production. It was the Brewers, who led in everything. They have William Contreras, who's a really good young player. But it's the Astros were getting rid of Martin Maldonado, replacing him with Yainer Diaz. Not necessarily a ton of power home run wise, but a lot of doubles. So they were up there in slugging and OPS. And then, the Royals.
I was going to say, I didn't see the Royals in your article today.
I
wondered where they figured
their
in.
numbers.
Yeah,
they were top 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Thanks to Salvador Perez, but he gets a lot of games at DH these days.
He does. Yeah.
The A's had a lot of home runs with Shea Langoliers from Keller. So, anyway, the Rangers feel like between Heim and Higashioka, last year they combined for 30 home runs. Those two, obviously, for different clubs. But that's going to take you from the bottom of baseball up toward the top and really kind of shift the landscape offensively there. And, of course, the Rangers know that they did not perform offensively last year, and they want to get better. So rather than standing pat and throwing Jonah Heim back out there for 500 more at-bats, they feel like Higashioka will take some of the workload from Jonah, and that will make Jonah better, make him fresh, keep him from giving away at-bats maybe late, something like that. But it was their first big signing of the offseason. Their first big acquisition. So that tells you how they felt about the catching situation.
And as I mentioned, he told us on the show that they came right after him. He knew from the first day free agents were available to sign, the Rangers were interested, and they made it very clear. And they made it worth his while. And away he came from the Padres to the Texas Rangers. And I think that there's so much to it that will help Jonah Heim, right? I mean, obviously, just the workload thing that you mentioned is huge. But I think when Jonah has thrived, and we forget because he had such a good 2023, and he played, frankly, that year like a veteran. But he's not. He's still a fairly young catcher in a position that's extremely difficult to learn and to absolutely almost impossible to master, right? So his best time was when he had Mitch Garver, a veteran catcher, right?
And Austin Hedges.
Austin Hedges, too.
And Austin Hedges, when you look at pitch framing and things like that, he's one of the best in the game, and so is Higashioka. So for Jonah to have somebody who can maybe point something out, say like, hey, you're not doing this. Bobby Wilson sees a lot of it, but maybe doesn't see all of it. And Higashioka, the Rangers, through the numbers that they value, has been one of the top receivers in the game for a number of years. And so the defense is good. Being able to add a more veteran eye to help Jonah out is good. And then, it has a trickle-down effect. A lot of the reason why Jonah's defensive numbers trickled off, was because the Rangers were asking him to set up behind home plate because their young pitchers maybe weren't savvy enough yet to work corners and do things like that. Well, with Higashioka, another veteran catcher, maybe they trust maybe it helps the pitchers a little bit more understand the nuances of pitching and all those things. So it's a win, across the board. The Rangers are going to get better defensively, but there's a real chance for Jonah Heim to get better across the board. And they aren't giving up on Jonah Heim by any stretch. They think that this is going to be a benefit to him to play less, which he recognizes now. He'd probably played a little too much the last 2 years, and then to wake up the bat, keep the body fresh. All those things, and it's just a win-win, really. It's
truly a classic case of less is more, right? That's what they're hoping, and I believe that's what they'll see. And look, the reality is Bruce Bochy has proven he is not afraid to have his catcher in there and then a catcher at designated hitter.
Right.
So if we get more time, and who knows? Obviously, with Jock Peterson here, there's a more sort of designated hitter. But by the same token, if you need to use Josh in there as the DH, there are injuries, there are times, then you'd feel very comfortable doing that.
Well, and they're both. Jonah's a switch hitter, but he's better as a right-handed hitter. Kyle Higashioka, right-handed hitter. So if Jock Peterson is not going to play against lefties, well, there's an opportunity to get both catchers in the lineup. There's definitely some lineup flexibility there. And to my point earlier that I made about the Rangers didn't just stand pat at catcher. They could have. They could have stayed with Jonah and then stuck with Sam Huff.
Yep.
They just didn't like that. I think they felt like they were going to fall into the same pit they did last year. Sam, of course, was designated for assignment. He's now with the Giants. Also coming to spring training, Tucker Barnhart, who's won 2 Gold Gloves in his career. Cooper Johnson, who was at AA last year. Malcolm Moore, the first-round pick. And then Chad Wallach, who, for whatever reason, 2 years ago, didn't hit much except against the Rangers. I believe his first career home run was against the Rangers when he played for the Angels. So, and he's Tim Wallach's son, if you guys remember the 80s, third baseman for the Expos. So anyway, you always bring a bunch of catchers at camp because there's a bunch of pitchers there you got to catch. You always want to have quality depth at that position because you're a foul tip away from catastrophe and needing a catcher the next day. So it'll be interesting to see if Wallach and Barnhart earn opportunities with another club late in spring training, if they have outs in their contracts, or if they don't make the team, if they end up going to AAA and accepting the role. Other catchers in the organization, Matt Watley is an interesting guy. Not a lot of offense, defensive savvy guy. He's with the Dominican. He was down there in the Dominican with the team that won it all, playing for them a little bit this winter. He's a guy was close. Bobby Wilson said on the weekly show here earlier in the offseason. You almost saw Matt Watley in the major leagues at one point last year. So there are a lot of guys down there who can catch. And I know they traded away Liam Hicks last year in the Carson Kelly trade, or maybe it was that Chafin trade. He's with Tigers. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
It will, and I wonder, in 23 we talk about that, and we talk about both Mitch Garver and Austin Hedges being there. Now, truly, at that point, Mitch Garver was more DH, right?
Yeah,
not catcher.
Yeah.
But is there any roster scenario where you see more than 2 catchers on this roster?
The Rangers, it seems like they always flirt with that. And I think Huff was an intriguing option because when Sam Huff hits the ball, he hits it further than just about anybody alive. I mean, he just has so much raw power. So that was always a possibility. I don't know that you would in this scenario, though. I mean, Tucker Barnhart's not an offensive giant.
Yeah.
I think now later in the year, September, a third catcher is a luxury. And so the Rangers did carry the 3 with Heim, Garver, and Austin Hedges in 23. Some of that was Heim coming off of that wrist injury that eventually never had to have surgery. But there is some value when you can expand the roster a little bit to having a third catcher. Just somebody to, if it's a blowout, you get a guy off his legs and you bring in this other guy, or somebody who can help, as was the case in 23, help a younger catcher like Heim get through the day. So, but I don't think the third catcher will be much of a topic this spring.
Yeah, they're not going to cripple, if you will, or hamstring the rest of that lineup. With that, they'll have other places where they need that roster spot, no doubt about that. So, and we'll be getting to all those roster projections and so much more. I don't know that we'll do that tomorrow, but we want you all to know we will have 2 very special guests tomorrow. We'll come back. We'll tell you who those 2 very special guests are, and we'll also get to some rankings that say your Texas Rangers might be the second best team in the American League. These are predictions. We'll talk about them next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. Saturday Neon is the next topic, though, of our day as we try to encourage you to avail yourself to these neon signs that are so cool. We've told you many times about these two college buddies. I can think of something. I can't think of too many things that would be more fun than if you're just two college buddies sitting around the fraternity house or wherever some night drinking a beer going, you know what we ought to do? And then they make a company called Saturday Neon. It has worked out for them. They've been become affiliated with 50 different major college programs. So you can probably get your favorite college team on a sign that looks neon, but it's really not. It is an LED, and so it won't have all the same issues that neon might. And those LED lights almost never burn out, and they're cool and they're colorful and they're fantastic. So go to SaturdayNeon.com. Use the code DLLS and get 10% off your neon sign.
While we're talking about decor for your man cave or sports room or office, Foco.com. Use the code DLS for 10% off. They've helped us design our various sets here, and we're greatly appreciative. Go over there. You'll be shocked at all the stuff they have for your favorite team. And I did Foco the other day, John. And what did I pick out? I picked out I can't remember what the product of the day was that I was going to select. But if you were a gardener, they have Texas Rangers gloves. Or if you want to do some wood shopping or whatever it is, handiwork gloves, they have those at Foco.com. It's pretty amazing just the variety they have. Not just baseball teams, all teams, and so. Really, if you're a sports fan and you want something or you need a gift idea for a sports fan, Foco's the place to go. So once again, Foco.com, Foco.com, DLLS for 10% off.
Do they have those Rangers gloves in leather? Did you notice?
I don't know, John.
I got to look. I might get a pair. I use leather gloves all the time.
Colored palm utility gloves.
Okay.
Your hands do a lot for you.
Yeah, they do indeed.
Yeah. So anyway,
yeah.
They look like they're kind of grippy too. Yeah, gripping material on the palm so you can work in the garden while you work your fandom.
Yeah. Okay, very good. And you're
polyester material, officially licensed.
They're not leather. That's okay. But anyway, you're representing. That's
Absolutely.
The main thing.
Yeah.
So we get to represent tomorrow, and we're really excited about the guests. Jeff's done a good job working through the PR department to get the guests that we have coming tomorrow, which are none other than the president of baseball operations, Chris Young, and the general manager, Ross Fenstermaker. Right now, the plan is, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be sitting right here with us.
That's the plan. Things always come up with a baseball team. I always tell John Moore when we're getting ready to promote our weekly show, and he sends out the tweet, always like, when it's a big guest like this, I'm always like, John, just wait till the last minute because stuff comes up. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe to answer Natalie's question, they'll come up with David Robertson tomorrow morning and have to cancel. I don't know, but we're looking forward to their input. They might join on the Zoom. Whatever it is, you'll get your chance to ask questions. If he is next to us, if they are both next to us, they're both tall guys.
Yes.
Obviously Chris Young's 6'10", but Ross is not short by any means. He's definitely taller than me, and I'm at 6'1". So we're gonna have a good front line for a basketball team tomorrow in here. And of course, Chris was a great player at Princeton.
Yeah,
and could have played in the NBA. So anyway, we'll figure out where to stick him so that we all don't look like we're super short. But it's great to have them on to talk about the off season, the club, and then just life its own self.
Yeah, which is great, and they're both great guys. I mean, that's the thing that's and they'll be relaxed. I think fairly relaxed in this setting, and then we'll start whizzing fastballs past
That's
them,
right,
and they'll see how they do with those. No, we're here to just sort of be the mouthpiece for you, and feel free to shoot us questions that you have. I did notice what Natalie was talking about when I was looking at a list today of just guys that still haven't signed yet, and David Robertson, a former Ranger, stuck out to me, and so did Andrew Heaney.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that not only has Andrew not signed after a really good, durable year last year, but I'm a little surprised we haven't heard his name much even.
We saw yesterday two lefties sign, Daniel Coulombe and Tim Hill, so maybe there's about to be a run on left-handed relievers. That slider's really good when he's able to command it, and he throws it without fear in any count. So I would expect that he'd get a job. And Robertson, he's his own agent, and he goes about things very uniquely. Aside from that, he said that he doesn't throw a ball, I guess, with any vigor, because obviously he has been playing catch. But he does not get on a mound at all in the offseason. And so he doesn't need time at all to get ready during spring training. So he can sign a little bit later. But I do think that he has the opportunity to sign still. I don't know what he would make, though. That's the thing. He had such an unbelievable year last year as the Rangers' primary setup guy. He struck out 99 guys.
And $11 million last year?
11 and a half, and some of that was deferred, so the Rangers are still paying him. So, hey, maybe he'll take another deal like that. But he's really good. He knows his value. I'm sure that when he talks to his agent, which is, really it's probably his wife, ultimately.
Yeah.
They live in Rhode Island, so maybe that geography will have a factor at this point. He's what, 39, 40? He's going to be 40, whatever it is. So it'll be interesting to see. But that's a name that's out there, baby. And that'd be a great one to have back. Holy cow, would it be good to have him
Most
back.
agents take somewhere, 5 to 10% as their fee to be the agent. And some of them are a lot more complex than that. But in general, 6% is a number that's often thrown out there. I bet you that David Robertson's agent, his wife, takes a lot more than 5 or 10%.
I'm going to say at least 50
off that deal.
Yeah.
That said, in all fairness and seriousness, he doesn't have to share his money with an agent, right? With somebody outside the home, and I do believe that would likely allow him to consider something of a little less value than an agent would be inclined to do, right?
Yeah,
because
sure.
the agent's like, dang, that cuts into my fee. Let's make sure we get the money up, right? So anyway, it'd be fun to see him back. There's no doubt he's a fun guy to talk to.
He just has fun when he pitches. He hops off the mound and goes and shakes the catcher's hand, or has something funny to say, or I really enjoyed watching him pitch last year.
Yeah, I did too. So I don't know what PECOTA is, Jeff, who made these predictions, but
PECOTA,
some acronym.
It's a algorithm. That's what the A stands for.
Oh, algorithm. Okay, so it's an algorithm. So there's science, there's math to this, and they have put out, and MLB, has either hired them or certainly has used them as their service, because MLB puts out today the odds of teams making the playoffs. This is just, we said the other day about making the World Series, and I think the Rangers were like 5th in that, and the Dodgers had like a 21% chance of making the World Series, and the Rangers had, with a lot of other teams, somewhere in the 7 to 8% chance of making the World Series. The drop-off from the Dodgers at 20 and to the next team was ridiculous. But in any event, this is the odds of making the playoffs. So, number one, of course, odds near 100%, the Dodgers. And obviously, therefore, their odds on favorites to win the National League West. Number two is the American League East, where PECOTA says that the Yankees and Orioles will have a battle to win that division, but that the Yankees are projected to win that division with 90 wins. Let's go to the National League East. They say it'll be the Braves in a 3-team race. In the American League West, it says the 2023 champions are back. The Rangers are favored to win the division with 89 wins. And in the division, it is projected that this year, Jeff, the American League West will be last year's American League Central, and that 3 teams from the West will make the playoffs. PECOTA is predicting that the Rangers will win 89 games, and then that the Astros and the Mariners will also make the playoffs. And I'm trying to see if they put so they said the Astros would win 87 and the Mariners would win 86.
I always think PECOTA comes in way low, but
on win total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those, 90 seems low, but then again, last year there was no 100-team win in baseball, and I think 88 was what won the West for the Astros. So hey, 89 would be a improvement. And the Rangers won 90 in 23 and managed to win the World Series as a wild card team. They're interesting. They're good to talk about. It's season simulations. I don't know that it accounts for injuries and things like that always shift the balance, if you will. If the Yankees lose Aaron Judge, which seems to happen from time to time, well, that's going to put a dent in their total.
Sure.
But the Orioles not having Corbin Burns is probably a big one, and so you never know who is going to come out of nowhere. Jenny here, looking forward to seeing what Emiliano Teodo does. Well, what if Emiliano Teodo becomes the Rangers closer in July and starts kicking butt and taking names? Who knows? These are the things you can't predict. But if Josh Young is healthy and if Jacob deGrom stays healthy, the Rangers are certainly going to be in a very good spot to make those PECOTA standings look pretty good at the end of the year.
Yeah, the other thing that PECOTA can't predict is things like that Tigers run, let's say, at the end of last season. And speaking of the Tigers, in the American League Central, I mentioned the three teams that were battling, right down to the wire last year. None of them, according to PECOTA, are expected to make the playoffs.
Oh, really?
Tigers, Guardians, and Royals out. Twins, American League Central champions and winners of the division, and the only one that will, again, according to PECOTA, with 86 wins, the only one that will make the playoffs from that division.
I don't know about that.
Seems low. Yeah, especially for those. I mean, the Royals have really loaded up. They've done things like we don't normally see them do, right?
100%. Yeah.
And the Tigers have had a pretty good offseason as well. So, and there's still talk, and we're going to get to Bregman in the next segment too, but there's still talk about them with Alex Bregman and, of course, a potential reunion with A.J. Hinch. So, yeah, we don't know if these, we do know. We know for a fact these predictions are going to be wrong. Right? I mean, they are.
Sure.
Maybe not the Dodgers, right? But everybody else, and even the Dodgers, who would have predicted that they'd have the decimating injuries to their pitching rotation and that they would be using, a bullpen games in the World Series last year?
It's a war of attrition, as they always say, and it's right. I mean, we talk about pitching is not a natural movement at all for the body, for the arm. You just kind of look around the Dodgers pitching staff. Tyler Glasnow, great pitcher, but gosh, he always gets hurt. Yamamoto was hurt last year with an elbow deal. You think that's not kind of in the back of their heads? And then what's going to become of Sasaki? He was hurt last year in Japan. A lot of reporters believe, and you always know that when these guys come over from Japan, they have difficulties. And again, that guy's going to be on an innings count, because he's not built up for 33 starts. Blake Snell, he's gone over 170 innings twice in his career. He's been around a while now. So there are some potential speed bumps for that Dodgers rotation. And then, the bullpen looks very, very good. There's no question about that. The lineup, they're going to be able to put guys in positions to help them succeed the best. So even what might look like a weakness, those players will be dropped into spots where they can succeed. So, it looks great for them. They won 98 games last year, won the World Series. I don't know. What did PECOTA predict for them?
Wins-wise, let's look. Let's see. It said, again, 100% chance of making the playoffs, and their win total, it says 99.2%. Why don't you have a win total for the Dodgers?
Well, you've already seen stories like the Dodgers. Are they going to be better than the 2000 Mariners? Are they going to break the single season wins record? I would say no, man, but who knows?
It's tough. I mean, that is such a no, that's still 99.2. It doesn't show. PECOTA did not say how many wins they thought. Oh, the Braves are next with 92. Where is your total? Oh, Geez, 104.
Josh, yeah.
104.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, but that ain't 116. You know, 116.
And then you get him in a short series, you never know what's going to happen.
No, I mean, as the Diamondbacks learned in 2023, I just looked, and by the way, they don't have the Diamondbacks making the playoffs either.
I neglected Ohtani in this Dodgers rotation breakdown. He's going to supposedly come back in May, it looks like. How effective is he going to be?
Right. Right.
And you talk about a guy who gets hurt pitching.
Yeah.
Talking about Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah. Lots to discuss and lots to consider as we head towards spring training, basically a week away. How fun is that?
Week from today.
Yeah, week and 1 day. So
from today.
Oh, week from today is
first workout for
pitchers
pitchers and catchers. Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay, week from today. Wow. All right, there you go. So anyway, we got more coming up. It's the cleanup segment when we will talk about Bregman and Sasaki's number and how it came about. It's all next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. So I was on the Die Hard site and all that today, right?
Okay.
Because I wanted to read your story about the catchers.
Yeah.
And so, and it had, I don't know if it had forgotten my password or whatever. I forgot it. Anyway, I had to change the password and all that other stuff to get in there. But I got in, and I encourage you. And then, but what was nice, typically, I just touch the story that you have, put out on social media, and I'm there and I see that story.
Yeah.
But I was reminded, I just started scrolling through all that you have written, and then I went over to our other sites. It's really easy to navigate, too, by the way. Went over to our other sites. I saw all the stuff that the Mavs guys have written. Kevin Gray and Tim Cato, who are from our Mavs crew, are in here right now. They look shell-shocked. They're bruised. They're broken. These poor men. Like all the Mavs fans, I feel bad about that. But anyway, they've been producing great content, including the stuff that Tim and Mark Stein have been writing that's also back there behind the paywall. So become a diehard and avail yourself to all that stuff, as well as 20% off of our events that are upcoming and 20% off the merchandise. Right now, you can be a diehard. What is it, $48? $4 a month.
$48.
$4 per month to become a diehard. I would encourage you to do that today.
And you still get the free shirt.
You do.
You're talking like a $13 basically for 1 year when you subtract the value of the free T-shirt, which is $35. So it's hard to beat that. So do it. Become a diehard and then go to store.allcitynetwork.com. Get your T-shirt. I think there are 6 or 7 varieties of Texas Rangers shirts. We have shirts for all the teams in the area. And if you just want to do like John,
shirt.
That's the Stars right there. I have the plain gray horseshoe DLLS one on today. Lots of things to do. Store.allcitynetwork.com.
Bobby Carella just walked in too. He looks bruised, broken, beaten. But what a great job they have done on all of this Mavs coverage. So check them out later today as well. We want to get to our cleanup segment, which is full of stuff as always. And as we get closer and closer to baseball season, we're going to have to start editing this cleanup segment because there's more and more that happens on a daily basis when we get to spring training and certainly once the season begins. But I was very interested to see after the Dodger Fest, of course, they just had Dodger Fest, I think, this past weekend, and it was the first chance that Dodgers fans had to talk to Roki Sasaki. And there's our man Jesse too. Jesse Holly's in here, so man, we've got. He's on Mavs this week, and he's going to be with Rangers next. So I appreciate. Hey, we don't want any trades of Corey Seager or anybody if you can help. Okay, but and if they do, you'll have an opinion. Jesse Holly hanging out with the Mavs today too. Now he doesn't look broken and beaten, so he's fired up, unlike the other three. But in any event, so Roki met with the media and talked about that, and they gave him number 11, which is the jersey of his preference that he wore, and it's very rare for a rookie to come in and get the number that he wants. It was a number that Miguel Rojas, a veteran, had been wearing.
Okay.
And, he came in and Miguel gave him the number, and Miguel said, "You don't need to give me anything. I just want you to help us win. All I care about is winning, which is a great thing. But then people in the media reminded him it's a tradition in Japan that if you're going to get a gift, and then reminded that last year when Shohei Ohtani came and got 17,
Joe Kelly,
he gave Joe Kelly and his wife, and there's a real nice video out there. Check that out. Go Google that. But of him dropping off a Porsche SUV. At the house.
When Max Scherzer came over, and he was he wears 31, and that was Mike Maddox's number, which coincidentally was his brother's number. But anyway, Maddox just gave it up. And I can't remember. He might have gotten a watch or something. But when he saw the Ohtani thing, he was like, Max, we got to renegotiate. I need a Porsche.
Yeah.
But anyway, Darvish was number 11, so I think there might be some something there as well between Sasaki, who really admires Darvish. Okay, great. Good for Roki and the crew.
Good for Rojas. I mean, and right attitude for Rojas. And a lot of guys just aren't really attached to their number. But the right attitude for Rojas. Kid, if you can come in and help us win, which we all, by all indications, you're going to be able to, it's all we really care about. We just want to win, baby. Just win.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, for a guy who's never been in a major league clubhouse, a guy who, with his team in Japan, had problems with the manager, had problems with the, I guess, management and ownership. I guess, you're not the top dog anymore.
No,
you're great, and we want you to do well, but you're a rookie. You've never been in the major leagues before, but this is what you can expect from your teammates: generosity, winning culture, and get in line. Get your stuff together, Roki. This is how it's done over here.
Yeah, and I think that one thing you really don't have to worry about with players that come from that Japanese culture, right, which is way more deferential to their elders than we are here, right? There used to be a big thing about respecting your elders here, even. Yeah. There it still exists. And right. I think that you don't have to worry about Roki coming in, I don't think, and being super cocky as a rookie, right? I think there's some deference to certainly his elder Japanese statesmen who are here, but even to the elder statesmen of the team and the organization.
Well, and if he does come over like that, baseball will humble him. He will very quickly find out that while his stuff is very, very good, these hitters are really good. And if he does anything that doesn't fit the culture, the veterans will pull him aside and talk to him. They will. And so that's the stuff that you don't see, and you also, as Japanese pitchers have encountered, the travel's entirely different. The work schedule's entirely different. And so he has a lot of adjusting to do. I mean, the culture, the food. I mean, you can get really good Japanese food anywhere you go. But there are just a lot of things that he's going to have to learn. And if he's not at his best every 5th day or 6th day or 8th day, however they plan on using him, he will be humbled and have a new respect for the game. Yeah, humbled on the field, right? Yeah. That's the thing. There is no greater humility or than these guys. There's no better way to humble these guys than to rake, right? And if these best hitters in the world are able to do that against him, he'll be eating humble pie. There's no doubt about that. All right, so we mentioned Bregman in the last segment. We mentioned the Astros and the possible reunion with A.J. Hinch. Don't know if that's still a super viable thing. It probably is. But yesterday, Dana Brown, the general manager for the Astros, met with the media at one of their media events, and he said, his exact quote was, well, we lost on Kyle Tucker and we lost on Alex Bregman. And everyone's like, wait, lost? He hadn't signed yet. And then he backtracked a little, Brown did, and said, well, I mean, yeah, because he hasn't signed yet, we're still having internal discussions about him, but later admitted, but we haven't talked to Scott Boras in a long time. Oh, wow. Well,
so it appears
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that their 6-year 156 is still on the table. But I assume it means that somebody is going to reward him more handsomely than that.
Yeah, choice of words is interesting. Lost Kyle Tucker. They traded Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Now maybe they attempted to extend him, and he told him to hit the bricks or get bent or whatever it is. Okay, and yes, Bregman being a free agent, they made moves to plug his absence with the trade for Isak Paredes. They signed Christian Walker, the first baseman. Now there are ways to, move it around and still make move for Bregman. Paredes goes to second. Altuve goes to left field. At that point, though, it feels like you're forcing something.
Yeah.
Honestly. So we'll see what happens. That it would be great, I think, for the Tigers. I really do. They need another bat. They have some young guys that haven't panned out yet, and I think Riley Green's going to be a really good player for them. Guys like that, but Torkelson, not a third baseman, but still that hasn't worked. Keith, that doesn't look very good. Now he's going to play first base. You have Jace Young in there, who's still a little bit young and a little bit green. So if you go sign Alec Bregman, man, it looks like your lineup looks a lot better. So that'd be fun. I'd be all right with that.
I would too. I would love to see what AJ, again, I'm, as you know, a Tigers fan growing up, and when the Rangers aren't playing them, I'm still a Tigers fan, and so it'd be fun to see what AJ Hinch and Alex Bregman together could do, and sort of in that reunited situation. So that'd be kind of fun. In the Caribbean World Series that we've talked about some, they've reached the semifinal round, so that the round robin play is over. Mexico, it was undefeated in the round robin.
The host team.
Yeah, the host team.
Benji Gill.
Undefeated with Benji Gill as their manager. And last night, in fact, the Japanese team, which we thought was a little odd to have them in the Caribbean World Series anyway, and so they didn't last long. They were ousted last night. Jesus Vargas of Venezuela pitched a no-hitter, and they shut out Japan 10-0. And who knew this, Jeff? I've begged for this for years. There's a mercy rule.
I was going to ask you about that.
In the Caribbean Series.
I think there should be a mercy rule, too.
Why shouldn't there be a mercy rule in Major League Baseball? 10-0. And in the 8th inning, they called it. Now, Vargas was still pitching, and he had pitched an 8-inning no-hitter. Do they put an asterisk next to it? I suppose they probably do.
Yeah, they should. But give me the mercy rule. I think the players would want the mercy rule, to be perfectly honest with you.
I would too. I mean, when you get down 14-1 or something, it's like, you can just see body language and stuff in the other dugout, whichever team's on the short end of that,
I think the only one who wouldn't be for it is Mike Bassick, because his rookie debut, his major league debut was part of the largest comeback in major league history. So, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think Japan sent its best and brightest over to this tournament.
No.
So,
well, yeah, they must not have. And to your point, too, about the mercy rule, I think that any team who feels like they have to insert a position player as a pitcher,
that's a white flag,
ought to be able to wave the white flag.
Yeah.
We're just, you know what? We're done. We don't have any more pitchers that we can use today. We're done.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Next CBA. Mercy rule.
Let's get it in there.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You think these rules changes that we've had in the past couple of years caused wailing and gnashing of teeth? I think that one would be monumental if we did. So anyway, do us a favor and check out the Mavs today. And don't forget about, and all our shows, but especially the Mavs, there's those poor guys. They've been working around the clock and like you, processing this news that seems to just be more and more unbelievable every day, and Luka Doncic being a Los Angeles Laker now. So check them out. But also tomorrow, we're on at 11. I don't know if we mentioned that when we were talking about our guests.
11 o'clock tomorrow.
11 tomorrow. We're an hour early to accommodate our guests. And so anyway, Chris Young, Ross Fenstermaker, ideally, and as of right now, the plan is to have them right here in studio. Worst case, we're pretty sure we'll have them via some sort of connectivity, and there's always a chance that they make a huge signing and we don't get them either way. But that's the plan right now. We're planning on it, and we ask you to do one thing for us. Plan on it as well and be by the channel. It should be fun. It should be interesting, and I don't think you'll regret 1 second of watching the show tomorrow. I hope you didn't regret any of it today either. We appreciate you chatting. We appreciate you hanging. We appreciate you spending lunch with us, and we'll see you tomorrow on another edition of the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.